Hey everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of 1Upsmanship.
Very special.
Very special. With me, Michael Slame.
And me, Adam Ganser.
That's two guys matching each other's inflection and energy perfectly.
Very perfectly.
And we're going to invite a third and very special guest into that energy circle, coming at you live via satellite from the Quarantine Enforcement Platform on planet 4546B, Mr. Charlie Cleveland.
You did your research.
Well,
I don't think I would even get the planet number right if I had to.
I was gonna quiz you, and then I decided to not put you on the spot immediately.
That would have been embarrassing. Yeah,
because we're very grateful that you're here.
Very grateful. We also just assumed that because you designed this game, it came from a personal place. A personal place on that planet. That's what we decided.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of truth there,
Ooh.
but without getting too much into it, but it's there's no one person that could know every detail of that monstrously huge game.
Of course, sure.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to my first question, because this is our first interview episode. Usually it's just us yammering at you. But so this is a big opportunity to, first, let's just get it out of the way. We both loved your game, sir.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yay, glad. So glad.
Yeah.
We enjoyed making it for you, even though we didn't know who you were when we made it.
Okay, well, we'll get into that. But yeah, our show sort of tries to tackle video games as a part of the larger artistic dialogue and as a medium, which I think it's becoming, broader and broader and less just shoot 'em up. And although we get into those as well, but I think video games over the course of our lifetime have become part of a very legitimate dialogue about art and interactive entertainment as such a specific medium. You said it came from a personal place, and my first question was going to be along those lines, why video games? And when, sort of at what age did that happen for you? Did you lock into that as a direction, but also why video games versus comic books or movies, or what is it about the interactive medium that drew you to it?
Well, I think I started making games probably when I was about 20, which was about 26 years ago, amazingly. And I just I basically fell in love with computers, when I was a teenager. That was this allure of programming and mastery and, not even virtual worlds at that time. But I just think that when I first got my hands on a computer, I pretty much fell in love with them. And Before that, I was already in love with games, playing, the original Mario Brothers, of course, all the arcade stuff in the actual arcades back when we had them, Dungeons and Dragons, Vampire, chess, pretty much everything but sports.
I love that you included chess. I love that. I think that's great, honestly.
Well, Star Trek chess.
Yeah.
the glass slot.
Right.
I always hope the first word out of the mouth when I ask that question of someone who's made it in gaming is not going to be, I fell in love with computer programming. I'm like, damn it, I'm out. I want to do this, but that's the hurdle.
I started as a comedy writer. Yeah, it led me down this surreptitious path into games.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Charlie
so often,
Cleveland, and he left the video game factory to me.
No, the people who make it have to work at it every once in a while you get somebody who makes an amazing game out of nowhere, but basically the people that make it are the ones that have, they're just in love with it and they've done it for a decade or two.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing I'm really curious about, because there's a lot of parallels there with what we do, which is speculative filmmaking, essentially, for a large part. And
right.
You have to wear a lot of hats and want to do it, and everyone has to believe in it when you're making a zero budget or low budget project. And as a result, I'm always fascinated by how the audience has such a narrower understanding of how many people are involved and how many different roles there are. And what was like roughly the size of the team on Subnautica, if I may ask? That you should know.
Yeah, so you're basically talking about the lazy dev syndrome.
Oh.
How
which
so?
is where
Explain.
devs are called lazy constantly by like people in the public, and that's okay. You just have to like get used to that. But basically,
Right.
everyone thinks that developers are lazy because there's bugs and because the game isn't perfect. So obviously, they're not working very hard. But yeah, Subnautica. I mean, it started with just 2 people, which is myself and this guy Steve, and slowly grew. Probably for the first year, it was 6 people. And the second year it was 12, and third year it was 20, 25, and then it just kind of stayed around 25, maybe creeping up to 30 by the time we released. And now for Below Zero, we have about 28, 30, same thing, working full time on that.
As a relatively small outfit, I guess what I'm wondering is, what did your day-to-day experience creating the game over the course of years, I assume, actually look like? Or what might people be surprised to find out you did or didn't do? Did you wear a lot of different hats, or were you able to delegate was everyone heads down in their role? How did that work?
Well, I mean, we were kind of building the team as we went. I mean, with our previous game, Natural Selection 2, we did have, we built like a group of maybe 15 team members, but we definitely, we had to build as we went. So it wasn't like, hey, let's get some level design in there. Okay, let's just call upon, well, actually, we did have a couple level designers, but they'd never worked in this area before. But it wasn't like, hey, we have the perfect person that is doing the thing that we need them to do. Let's just call on them and fill out a requisition form. It was more like, crap, we need to figure out how to do, multilinear story. I mean, we didn't think of it in those terms, but we just were kind of making it up as we went. So it was not.
That's interesting. At what point did you start this project knowing it was going to be your job, or was it ever spec? Was there ever a point where you weren't sure it was going to make it?
Oh my gosh, it was. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you have to believe in yourself. So I basically never believed that we would actually fail. But I mean, we were constantly on that edge. I mean, after when we got to, I guess it was it was around October or November of 2014, we had spent, and we could see that we had 1 month left of money. Like, the company will be unable to pay its bills in 1 month.
That's crazy.
And, I mean, it's kind of normal. It's like the 3rd or 4th time that's happened, at least in our history. So it's actually really not that big of a deal. I mean, yes, it's a big deal. You need to take it seriously, but we've always survived. We've always found something.
So far, but you're calm about it, so I guess that's good. Yeah.
Is that normal? So, I mean, you're saying it's relatively normal.
I mean, it's not healthy and it's not good, but
Sure.
It's not as disastrous as people think it is. But so, at least in my mind, but I guess running a company isn't for everyone. So we had gotten to like November of 2014. We were going to be out of money. We had to find a way to get a loan, which we did. And then we knew that we had to go to early access, even though the game, we didn't really feel super confident about the game. We knew it had some major shortcomings, but we thought it was going to be healthiest for the game to just get it in front of people. And we knew that we had to get some revenue, so we had to start selling it. So we did that. And then those first couple months, I mean, the game, people seemed to like it. Like, we were decently reviewed. I don't know, like 85, 90% Steam ratings. But our sales were not super high. Like, our sales were just, we were like a little below what we needed to make on a monthly basis to like stay afloat.
Till this episode airs, man. Get ready.
Get ready for that 1Upsmanship bump.
Get ready to buy your own private
There
Cyclops.
we go. Fireworks. Ignite. But, so then the next couple months was really touch and go. It turned out that really the game was not the game that it needed to be, and we realized that. And there were some boring aspects of the game, a lot of sciencey stuff, and we removed a lot. Like, we'd removed violence, but we hadn't really put in something to replace it. So I think that's why our sales weren't great. And luckily, just to wrap up this rambling story, we just changed the game a lot and kind of found its heart. And then the sales responded as the game got a lot better. And
It's interesting how late in the process that came together.
I assumed in my
continuous.
In my imaginary story of this game getting created, and this is clearly not true at all, someone, and I guessed you, Charlie, I assumed, like was sitting under the tree like Isaac Newton, and like I thought the energy driving this project was, I want to make an underwater, non-violent exploration research game. And you're saying even that, so like I want to ask, like, what was core to the game on day one?
Yep.
And who knew?
Actually, so actually, I actually did have a tree moment. I was sitting in my garden in the Haight, and I was just coming off of Natural Selection 2, which is a game I'm very passionate about, but it is a sci-fi shooter, multiplayer, competitive, multiplayer only, super intense. And I just, we just had the Sandy Hook tragedy. It was like one of many. And that, like, of course, looking back now, it's like, who even remembers Sandy Hook? We've had so many since then. But, and I just couldn't, I'm like, why am I even making games? Like, why am I making, do I want to keep adding virtual guns to the world? Like, I'm not against it, but is that really, like, do I want to spend 5 more years doing that? And I thought I don't want to do that. I want to do something really different. And Minecraft had painted a beautiful picture of like basically a creative focused game, building and resource gathering and exploring. And I didn't know it needed to be underwater, but I thought it was going to be outer space. But I wanted to do, actually the very first thought was, let's do a co-op game in space where players are building spacecrafts and space stations together. And
that would be dope.
We very quickly moved away from that because it looked like everyone and their brother was making a outer space game. So, but that's just what happens. There's a psychological name for it. I forgot. Psychological theory, where you focus on something and all of a sudden you see it everywhere. Now I know that that's what that's called, but anyways, at the time it felt like there were too many space games, and we thought, okay, what else could you be exploring with friends underwater? And the name of the company is Unknown Worlds. I channel James Cameron on a daily basis. If it wasn't space, it was going to be water. I knew I was going to make an underwater game at some point. I mean, it's just, and so we tried it, and that's where we got moving. We started learning about the game, which I want to talk to you more about.
I mean, how important is it to you? Like, how important is like the experience of being terrified as a theme for you? And I ask that because I feel like both of those environments are inherently terrifying, right?
There's something unique about being underwater, and whether you had it in a brilliant flash of insight or got there collaboratively over time, you ended on a very underrepresented gameplay experience, which is being fully underwater for the majority of the game. That is inherently creepy as fuck.
But you know that had to be a driving factor for you, I imagine, right?
So that's what's funny. I wouldn't say it was a driving factor. I mean, to me, I can play for you. I mean, the theme was a driving factor. The exploration, the excitement, the wonder, but the fear was not actually something that was in there from the beginning. And that was something we realized after we hit early access, was people were really responding to the scary stuff. We didn't even have any scary stuff really, but we could see that they were so excited about big creatures and about like staring off into the abyss, down into the abyss and the darkness, and people were scared out of their minds. We see people that wouldn't leave their escape pod. Like that's why they play the game. They never leave their escape pod.
It's like a book is just symbols on a page, but you're inviting us to imagine drowning under 1,000 feet of water. Yeah. It's like it inherently scares you. It doesn't take a lot. But I just think it adds such an amazing element to the game. And I'm really glad it ended up underwater. You talked about it not making a lot of money. Was that in the early days, or how, in terms of an overall from the spreadsheet vantage? Because you guys are, not to put the cart before the seahorse, but
seahorse.
You guys are currently at work in a similar fashion. It's open source, and you're developing it with audience input of the sequel, Subnautica Below Zero. Because I guess you didn't want to go Subnautica Sub-Zero. I get that. That's a
No,
good
we
impulse.
talked about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
some people will call about it. That's okay.
One guy said it. He doesn't work here anymore.
Plus, in video games, Sub-Zero is kind of a cornered market.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
that too.
what went? Has it become profitable as a project, or if not, what
Oh
went
my
into
God,
the passion behind the second? Okay, good.
Yeah,
glad to hear that.
Deserves
I mean,
to be.
Yeah, we sold 5 million copies.
Woo! Wow.
Yeah, this
So
great.
Leviathan
might be the
with that.
biggest. This might be the biggest game I ever work on. You know, that this might have been the peak of my career for sure, in our career.
No, Below Zero is going to blow it out of the frozen water.
I mean, yeah, at the very least,
We hope.
At the very least, people will be aware of this game right away, right?
Yeah.
Subnautica is now
That's the
out
thing.
there in the ether.
Yeah.
I mean, below Zero actually. So Subnautica started off slow, and then the updates had like huge sales. I mean, because streamers would find the game, and players found out about it, and they went crazy. We added, subs and base building and all this stuff. Below Zero is the opposite. Like when we launched it, it was number 1 on Steam for a week, and we never hit number 1 with Subnautica. But then, like, now our updates on Below Zero, like, nobody cares. Like, I shouldn't say nobody cares. They care, but we don't see the response. We don't see, like, oh my God, they just added this cool new creature, this new chapter of the story. Let's let everyone buy it. It has, like, the opposite curve. It's like, it's going to be front loaded, and then 1.0 will be another big spike for us.
Right,
So,
people will wait, be like, I checked it out. I'm going to wait till the 1.0 release, and then I'll
You wait till
play it
1.0.
again. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I mean, people that played Subnautica, they don't want to get spoiled now. Whereas people people had played Subnautica, before 1.0, they didn't know what to expect, and they were okay with being spoiled because they didn't know. Well, there wasn't even story in the beginning of Subnautica, so they didn't think they could be spoiled.
Well, that's a very interesting aspect. So let's get into that a little bit. Was there a point where it was just a world and like an escape? It was the only goal, and there was no story. Okay.
Yeah, it was goalless. I mean, Tom Joubert came to us. He's the writer on FTL and Taylor's Principle and Swapper.
Oh,
he came to us.
Yeah.
Talos Principle, yeah. He came to us. He played the game in early access, and he came to us and said, "I want to write a story for this game. It deserves a story. It needs one." And we thought he was right, and so he joined the team, and we worked like crazy for the next, I guess, 2 or 3 years on the story, which turned out to be a huge amount of work. But it was, I mean, I'm so happy.
Well, it pays off because one of the brilliant things about the game, I think, is the way in which it's paced, and because even though it's vastly different, you feel the Minecraft, like the genre that Minecraft sort of coined, it's in there. So you're set up to assume it's goalless. When you go over the horizon and see an alien structure, it's a truly impactful moment because you realize, oh, it's a game. You're like, there's going to be a whole thing is going to happen. Yeah.
He did an amazing job.
Yeah.
I mean, he really did. Because I remember thinking at hour 20, like, I don't need there to be much more to this. You know what I mean? Like, I was really satisfied with the loops, and then the fact that every time I was just about to be, ready to be like, okay, this is great. Like then a narrative thing would pop in and like, oh wow, I got to find out what this is now, and it would lead me past the gates. So like, I don't know exactly how premeditated his pacing is, or whether you guys like spend endless hours talking about it. I bet you do.
Fine-tuning it. Yeah.
But it
We
really
spent
worked.
endless hours talking about it.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no top-down process. Excuse me for the construction in the background. There's no top-down process on that story stuff. I mean, we'd like to think that we can make games like that, but we certainly can't, and I really doubt that many people can. I mean, you can make a story-focused game from the beginning that's linear and that has a point of view and is very known. Like if you do a genre that's super known and you're not doing something crazy there, I think you can do it maybe, but that's not how we work. We knew the themes of the game. We knew we had some big set piece ideas. We knew from our original teaser video, we knew about the Emperor Leviathan, and we knew she'd be at the bottom of the ocean. But that was like a constraint for us because we had to get, we just like came up with that constraint because we needed to get people excited about the game. And we had no idea that what the relevance of her was going to be. And we just started making story beats and planning it out. And yes, it took hours of discussion for each story beat because it has to be tied into level design and sound design and tech tree and crap.
Oh, the sound design. That's
All
another
that
one.
Sound design is really great in this game. That's just so counterintuitive to me as a person who's worked in film for the last 10 years. Because, I mean, it's every bit the opposite. Like, the story being solid and clear and driving everything is like
is the
first
only
thing
reason
they
you
teach you, right?
get people together to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So, like, for you guys, the driving thing is world and I imagine gameplay loops, right? Like, that's the building block that gets you guys excited.
I wouldn't say... I guess so. I mean, I wouldn't say that it controls everything. I think we used to think of game design as being the number one and most important thing, and now I just think of it as one of the important things.
Huh.
So what are the other pillars then in your mind? Like when as a writer, it's hard to understand when this is not to sound condescending, but like, why'd you do this? Or did you just go into a blank room and gather a few friends and go, I want to make another game. What should it be? Well, you said a collaborative space game. So in that case, it was sort of the kernel of a gameplay, like co-op space building. Is that the sort of idea that is the initial pitch that gets you into a game? Because you're going to end up dedicating years of your life to this project.
Exactly. Well, of course, every time I even told the team, like, okay, this game is going to be an 18-month game. If we take more than 18 months, I quit, like that kind of thing. Like, there's no way. It's going to be 18 months. It's going to be for iPad. We're going to sell like gazillions of copies. That's where we started. And of course, we ended up someplace quite different. But to me, it's actually... There was no genre. I don't think in terms of genres. I think in terms of experiences and emotions. And the emotions for Subnautica were there from the beginning. I mean, they weren't fully formed, but I usually choose a piece of music that kind of sums up the overall feel of the game, and that is the driving force behind it for me. And that never changes, regardless of genre or even like when we move from outer space to underwater.
Well, we gotta know.
A month and a half. Yeah.
What's the Subnautica song? Is it that Shin song they use in Garden State? I bet it is.
No, it's actually not in the soundtrack. It's actually licensed. It's not licensed. It's from Solar Fields. I'll play it for you in a moment. I probably can bring it up. Do you want me to take 20 seconds to find it, or is that going to break?
Sure,
it down?
and then we'll find it online and cut in a high quality version here.
Yeah, it's so rare for a creator to be able to share their inspiration so directly like this.
Oh, it's just how we work, and maybe it helps someone else. So yeah, it's cool.
It was the fourth Weird Al polka mix. That was Solo Fields holding strong at number 8 for the third week in a row. Coming up next, Livin' La Vida Loca. No, but let's get back into it. Adam, do you have a question?
Yeah, I did. So, well, I guess I was going to summarize something you said and see if you agree with it. It seems to me like for you, the emotional thing about games is more environment and it's more environment and action based than plot action based. Does that seem true to you?
It's just emotional. It's just like what are the feelings they feel? I mean, for me, for Subnautica, what I was excited about was the thrill of the unknown. Like that's it. Like, what can we do to create the feeling of the thrill of the unknown?
That's interesting. See, so Mike and I talk at length, as you know, on this podcast about the narrative experience of it, but we're almost always.
Thank you, sir.
We're almost always talking about plotting. Almost always.
Humans care about plot.
Of course they do, and we're not wrong for doing that. I mean, that's our business.
Right.
But it's interesting to hear a game designer talk about it because it's a lot more of a primal, fundamental thing. Like his narrative experience is fundamentally about the immersion of the atmosphere, right? And the basic actions.
Whereas
That's interesting.
a movie is always sold on what's it about, what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be like I like noir
Right.
movies because I enjoy the lighting and the feeling of it, not because I enjoy the caper.
Which is an interesting
Yeah.
insight because it is true. The reason you like specific genres is an overlap of the feelings they generate in you.
Yeah.
But we never discuss it through that lens. We're always like,
Yeah, true.
I like horror movies
But see-
where people die.
But see, I'm gonna have to start thinking about that when I'm playing games. Is like, what's the thing that made this person want to make this?
Right.
Like at a very primal core level. Because I think that's really interesting.
Are there any games that come top of mind when you were thinking of that feeling, like other games that inspire that feeling? Like I just got to ask off the bat, Aquabat, that's a joke for our ska fans. It's a good pun if
Ska
you
fan.
can. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, my question for Charlie is, did Echo the Dolphin come up? And if so, how early in the process and how often? Because Echo the Dolphin's the oldest game I can remember that gave me that uneasy feeling of like everything's calm, but I don't know what's coming next.
Yeah. I mean, I told you before that the original prototypes were made by myself and this guy, Steve On. Steve is a huge Echo the Dolphin fan. And actually, within the first few months, we somehow got to meet Ed Annunziata. Is that his last name? The creator of Echo. He's here in the Bay Area.
Oh, cool.
And we actually had him by the office and talked to him about our new underwater game. And
Wow.
I can't say I played much Echo. I mean, I know it was really hard and I know it was really trippy and I've seen, watched some of the videos and stuff, but probably Steve had more of an influence there to get some of that in the game.
Sure.
That's still cool, though.
Yeah.
Well, it had that element where there was a long chunk of the game where you're like, I'm just a dolphin. I eat starfish to survive. And then all of a sudden an alien ship appears like 4 hours in. And you're like, what? It's going to go this way. So it was reminiscent that way. Well, what are there games you considered inspirational as far as that tone thing is concerned?
I mean, honestly, the only thing I can think of now is like Breath of the Wild, but that was after.
My next guess.
Yeah.
Right, yep.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more about like The Abyss, that film, James Cameron film. That
Sure,
was way more inspirational than any game.
Makes
Minecraft
perfect
was
sense.
inspirational for sure.
Well, you also went way over your projected timeline with the project, so you're definitely channeling James Cameron.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there you go. I mean, I would say honestly that I've kind of talked about this at length now, but if you want to make something original, you just can't. You can't constrain the time. It's just you can't.
Sure.
You don't even know what you're building. You have no idea what you're building. You have some like goalposts. You have some waypoints that you have in mind, but you're kind of learning. You're learning about the game as you build it, and you're listening to the game. And I was talking about this. It's kind of like you're lost in a jungle, and you're trying to find your way out of the jungle, and you're like looking for clues, and you're trying to keep your eye on the horizon. And your exact path through it is going to keep changing, and that's normal if you're lost in a jungle. It's nothing to be worried about. This is how making original games works.
You seem very relaxed. You seem very relaxed given the challenges of game making and financing and things like that. Is that just the way you are, or is that wisdom and experience talking?
I mean, I've been doing this a long time, so yeah. I mean, I think I've always been pretty relaxed about financing. I mean, we're in a good spot now. Sorry about that. We're in a good spot now where we just don't have to worry about money, which is absolutely amazing. We've never been in this spot before. So we were semi-relaxed before when we were like always on the brink of disaster, but now it's like now we know we're going to be fine. So
do you ever find your game or your product being compared to contemporaries that you disagree with? Like, are there like, we're not like this game, but people keep bringing it up? Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah, like I was glad you didn't resent the Minecraft comparison. I would have.
Right.
I didn't. I was glad that wasn't putting my foot in my mouth.
I mean, I also just feel like as a person who's made anything, like whenever somebody tries to bracket it with another thing, there's always a part of me that's like, it's not that, So I'm just kind of wondering if you feel the same way.
Yeah. Well, the weird thing is Subnautica came out of Minecraft in a way. Like the very first, I could show you videos, but the first prototypes are like so Minecrafty. It's ridiculous. And I think that's normal, and I think that's great. They're training wheels. You're gonna get inspired in the beginning, and then you're gonna find your own way. And if at the end you actually are still too much like that game, I think you're gonna know it, and I hope your players would know it too. Like I just made a board game actually that was completely based off of another board game, Cosmic Encounter.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, like in the beginning, it was like kind of way too close to Cosmic, and over time it found its own legs, and now it's like really, really different. But it's the game that I was trying to make. I just hadn't known what it was until it was made.
See, I know writers like that too. That's just the opposite of the way I write. You would be one of those writers who's like, the characters just tell me what they want to say next, and I'd be like, no, you plan it in advance and you execute on page whatever the thing.
But you can do both, right? Because in the beginning, okay, so say I've been studying script writing for a while, and I've been wondering like where is it the same as video games, and how is it really different? And I just think that if you zoom out, like your first draft is going to be maybe you don't have an ending. But then after your third draft, now you have an ending that you're in love with. And because you made that ending, now you're going to set up your beginning properly. So now you could say, well, now it's very structured. I'm not listening to what the characters are telling me. I have a fixed ending. I have a fixed beginning. Like now those are my constraints. So it's kind of like and. All those things are true. They're just true at different times.
Well, you have the unique advantage of kind of writing the property as it's released. I mean, like, I guess I think of it as an advantage, but is that an advantage, or is that actually like stressful for you guys to be?
It's a bit of both. I mean, there's people on the team who never want to do another early access game. I mean, like, I can think of one person at least, my co-founder Max. He just doesn't enjoy early access. He likes to release things when they're really polished and when they're well thought out and all that. I'm the opposite. Like, I mean, I do like to unveil things, but I can't imagine not. I mean, we actually have a new game we're working on that we haven't gone into early access with, and we probably won't. And it will be really interesting to try. I mean, this will be the first game I've worked on in 20 years that wasn't early access. And I'm not exaggerating, because we've been doing this way before early access. Actually, no, 18 years. We've been doing it way before it was even a thing.
Trend.
Like we released, original natural selection. I was releasing map packs, or textures, groups of textures for people to like install into like their Worldcraft. What was it called? I can't remember now.
World of Warcraft
version of Half-Life. No, before a Hammer. No, it was Worldcraft to start with. Valve's Half-Life 1 editor. We were releasing, before the game was done, before the mod was finished, we were releasing documents on how to make your own levels with like music to listen to while you're making the levels to get you inspired, and particle systems for steam and smoke, and all the textures and layout diagrams. And that was before we had a game. It wasn't even playable, and we'd release that stuff. And it helped, we helped recruit people. We helped get, publicity, on Planet Half-Life, which is way before your time, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was awesome.
I'm used to working that way.
I know it's an unglamorous question, but it's true for indie filmmakers as well. And I just wanted to sort of compare notes. Before Subnautica, or did a lot of your job involve fundraising? Like pitching the game? Have you pitched the game a million times to people with money? Yeah.
So we never actually had to pitch Subnautica, except lightly, because at the time that we were working on Subnautica, we basically just had to convince our then parent company that basically not to like veto our use of our own funds. It's a long story, but basically a company bought us, and then they could control the budget. So technically speaking, they told us that we would have creative freedom, and they actually did give it to us ultimately, but we still kind of had to sell them on the idea. And they just said underwater games are horrible. They've never worked. Don't do it. Just don't. Please don't do it. And we said, we really want to do it. Really want to do it. And they said, please don't do it. And it just went on like that for a long time. And eventually they just stopped saying that. And, but they let us do it. So, and before that.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask Adam if with our game knowledge combined, like I'm trying to think of predominantly underwater games.
Underwater, I don't know.
James Pond,
Not many.
like the platformer for NES.
I mean, yeah. Also, I don't think I can think of an experience
Echo,
that's
but-
this.
right.
I mean, like I can think of like BioShock or like.
well,
you know,
you're underwater,
right,
but you're
but
in a
it's not.
building.
Exactly. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, what are they basing that on?
Yeah, like whoever said they don't work. It's like, really? Name 5 underwater games you played that you thought didn't work.
I can't. That's why they don't work.
Yeah. But we
That's a
reserve
good point.
ultimate final veto power.
I'm going to use that excuse from now on. Name some underwater games that didn't work. Like underwater levels hadn't worked up to that point, but yeah.
But that's because, yeah, if you're not focused, underwater gameplay has always been treated as like a garnish where you're like, oh, you fell in the water, now you have to do this for a while.
It's
not-
another thing.
Right,
It's a Mario Brothers level.
Yeah,
Right.
but
Oh my gosh.
it's in the same way that I thought Marvel's Spider-Man, I finally, like, I loved the Sega CD Spider-Man back in the day, but Marvel's Spider-Man, I was like, oh, the technology has finally gotten to the point where it makes me feel like what it would feel like to web sling. That
Agreed.
feels very
It
good.
did do that.
It felt so good to play a
Yeah.
game where you're like, finally, now this is what it would feel like to be underwater.
This is what it feel like to be
That's right.
scared underwater.
Yeah.
You know, when
how
you said
challenging?
that, I just realized. Wait,
Yeah.
I was going to follow up with one thing. I just had like a little mini revelation, which is that when underwater levels don't work in primarily above water games,
Yep.
it's because it's like what you basically just said, which is that it just was kind of thrown in there, and that's the problem. And the level, like how you move and how you interact, is so different. We're actually having the same problem right now with Below Zero because we have an underwater game where we added above water. And we're trying to figure out, like, how can we make the above water stuff work? So it's not about above or below. It's about the differential.
That's okay. I was going to ask because I do think an interesting component. When our Minecraft episode, we talked about how one of the really innovative or like seminal aspects of Minecraft is the natural cycle in that it's really 2 games. It's a mining game and it's a crafting game. And the day-night cycle in Minecraft dictates which one you focus on. And it becomes intensely addictive and time-consumptive because you never get bored because the game basically gets refreshed by getting swapped out with a different game that sort of activates different neurons. And I feel like there's amazing potential to create a below water, above water dichotomy where the game feels fundamentally different in each case. But you basically have to create a second game, right? Like that must feel like
interesting.
Because
we could put all of our crafting stations above water in this game. That would, I don't know if it would fix it, but it might help.
Or you have to cheat it, right? You have to make above water the same as below water by like space or something. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're not really doing it.
Or like
right?
you said, it ends up feeling like, I mean, even Super Mario World, one of the most finely tuned games humanity ever made. When he's underwater, you're like, this doesn't really feel like being underwater.
Yeah.
Whatever, it was like a side,
Also, why are those fire things working? It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Sure.
We have fire underwater too, if you remember,
That's true, but
with the sea dragons.
Oh, that's
But no one
true.
cares. Yeah.
Ooh.
Who
I mean, here's
was
lava.
this?
Lava works underwater.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Although,
Well, just shooting lava balls.
in reality, shouldn't like giant mounds of dried magma formed by every... Anyway.
I think did we not have that in the final version? It was one of the first things we prototyped.
Oh, really?
Growing. I think we have. I mean, it doesn't come from the sea dragon, but we do have animated lava columns.
Lava cooling as it hits
yeah.
the water.
That happened, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All
I
right.
think those are still in there.
I'll settle down with my Mario jokes, it sounds like.
Sure. No, well, I played the game for many, many hours, but I only just finished it 4 days ago, so... It's
I
very
saw your
fresh.
video of that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you finished it, and I'm going to one-up you because I've played the game for thousands of hours, and I've never finished the final version.
Oh, you haven't?
Interesting.
Because I'll tell you,
Isn't that weird?
when your ship is taking off and you hit atmosphere and the ship shudders for a second, again, very impactful storytelling. I was like, oh, here it comes. Oh, God, oh, no, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
Everybody relax. We're cool. Yeah.
Everyone were like... The thing is,
So-
of course, we saw and argued about that cinematic for like 2 months before we launched it, so I can't even... There's no way I could possibly understand
what it
like, in that
feels
viewpoint.
like, right?
What it feels
that
like. I have
totally
no
makes sense.
idea. I don't even know if it's good or not. So
Well, it's one of those things that, like a Marvel's post-credit sequence, you can parse it forever with your nerd friends of like, but that false beat promised more game, and then the game didn't have it. I'm like, but I liked the experience of the false beat personally, and I think it sets us up for Below Zero very well.
It was very intense.
That-
I mean, like a lot of motion in this game, it's very intense.
Yeah,
Right? Like, you are worried it's going to crash.
yeah.
You know?
Well, now I'm just nitpicking the game, which we shouldn't do to the creator's
No,
face.
but you know what I think is
Okay.
I do think
I was
we're not changing anything. We're done. Let's update the game.
I was grateful but surprised that I never found any corpses, just because I thought that would have had an emotional
Yeah.
impact. But like we assume
that was- yeah.
animals ate them all before we find them, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We knew there's no way we're going to have a bunch of dead bodies floating around the world, regardless of realism. It's just way emotionally wrong for us.
Sure.
that's interesting.
Well, that
Yeah.
makes sense if you're coming off of Sandy Hook and thinking about wanting to put a game
Yeah.
just about the thrill of the unknown in there, you don't want to really highlight
the tragedy
all
of
the
it.
grim, tragic
Yeah.
aspects of the unknown.
Hell no.
But you guys didn't shy away from them. I mean, it is a lone survivor game, and I love, of course. Yeah. Well,
But
you make it.
There's no rewards for killing anything, and it's really hard to kill things.
Yes,
It is very difficult.
It felt triumphant though at the end. It's like an Alive, if you will.
It's also interesting, and because my lasting impression of it was like, oh yeah, that computer was kind of funny the whole time.
I
Like
was
that
gonna
last
say,
little joke, like really cemented my impression of the tone.
It was
of the game.
interesting that you guys very subtly hint at a satirical dystopia existing in the broader universe. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting
That's
because
all
I don't.
Tom, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think
Tom
of the game.
That's all voice of Tom.
Interesting. I didn't think of it as being a funny game, but then that last impression was so strong that I remembered that it kind of was. That it kind
Yeah.
of is a funny game.
Right, like you owe 3 trillion credits for use of the
Right.
fabricator. Yeah.
It's like, oh,
yeah.
That's right.
We're kind
Still
of
kind of fucked.
we're kind of like loosening up. I mean, it's really my issue. Like, I always wanted to do serious games and, just like super dramatic and super
Sure.
emotional. And over time, I'm realizing that it's good to add humor. And in fact, like, a lot of times you can add humor and it will actually deepen the other emotions. I'm not really sure why, but I'm
I
quite sure
think
that
that's
it's true.
That's true in Subnautica, I think, very much so. The humorous aspects, it's like a plate of food. It's like they balance very nicely with the feeling of like staring into the abyss.
It
I think.
reassures you because, the first hour and a half or 2 hours of your game are basically like trying to swim as far as I can without drowning.
It almost
and getting
is
back.
like what it would be like in a real shipwreck.
Yes.
It's very frightening.
And so
yeah.
you get this PDA when you come back, and the PDA is like kind of snarky. And you're like, okay, so this is going to be fine, probably.
You're like, sarcasm exists in this universe. I'll survive,
Yeah.
probably, ultimately.
Mhm.
There's a sassy robot. It can't be that grim.
Exactly.
Can't be so bad.
So I had
We
another
talked
question.
about how that would improve your survival chances if you had a robot that was kind of goading you along and not being super serious all the time.
Did you? That's interesting.
Oh, that's a viable
Yeah.
hard sci-fi option. It's like over time, like we used to have just Siri voices, and then we were like, but people get depressed. We should make them
Totally.
charming. Yeah.
You're alone.
That's smart.
You're alone
That's
for a
interesting.
long, long time. How are we going to make you? How are we going to make you feel less isolated and a little more upbeat?
Smart.
They could have included one season of Arrested Development on the robot's hard drive. I'm just saying.
You would have been happy.
We'll include Scrubs in the sequel.
Or like a Rolodex of Simpsons quotes, something for the robot to whip out.
So I do have one question about working with an audience extensively. So you guys, I mean, you're obviously using this early access platform. To what extent do you now, as a designer, expect there to be a community trying to solve your game? Is that like incorporated into how you design now? Is like, oh, there's going to be a Reddit thread that's solving all my puzzles?
Well, so we actually didn't put any puzzles in the game except that one stupid key card puzzle, which I'm just so annoyed at. But
Oh, the
Okay.
tablets? Not a tablet fan. Interesting.
yeah, I think it's so stupid and shouldn't be there. But
That's so good.
we didn't put puzzles in, so I mean, people are going to spoil the game, and that's okay. I mean, I feel like If you're playing
Right.
early access, if you don't get spoilers, I don't really know what you're playing, because the spoilers, I mean, the reveals are so important to the game. We just decided a long time ago, we're going to do early access. We're going to have story beats. It will spoil people, and that's okay. It's better to spoil people and have them excited and making videos about the spoiling than to have people not talking about your game.
So maybe I'll put it to you.
Or for us to work in secret. Sorry,
That's it. No, that's okay. So I'll put it to you a different way. So like, as a user of this game, there were moments where I was trying to figure out where resources were, right? And because I'm lazy, I was like, well, I've put a good 30 minutes into this. Let's see if anybody else figured out where the nickel ore is. Are you expecting that? Is that now how you design a game? Is like, there's going to be a few people who are going to do that for everyone else and build a map and all those things?
Yeah, we talked about that a lot too. And we looked at Minecraft and we realized people are fine with a wiki. You have not failed as a game maker if people need to look at a wiki. I mean, I think the old me would have said, we have failed. I can't believe that game, like, I needed to look at a wiki, like, the game is worse. It could have been designed better. Now I look at it more like, if some people need to use the wiki because their tolerance for, tedium or uncertainty is lower than other people's, or they have less time, that's fine. It's more important that we make a game that challenges players and gives them that, really that euphoria when you do find something on your own and you do overcome something that takes a long time or, sustained effort. It's more important to me to have those really high points for people and than to make it uniform for everyone.
I agree, and that's definitely something that's interestingly very different from film, I would say, because I still maintain.
Yes.
I agree with what Charlie just said, and yet maintain I like Donnie Darko tonally, but like Donnie Darko only makes sense if you read a book's worth of additional material outside the movie. Well, that's a failure then.
Right. I don't want to read an essay to explain your movie. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. I mean, I understand where you're going with that, and I never researched Donnie Darko afterwards, and if I did, I'd probably enjoy it more. I mean, I love the movie, but
if you like lore, you seem like the kind of guy who'd like lore and world building and like nerdificent connections and systems. Donnie Darko was so compelling to me, I did intense research into it and everything the writer thought, and basically you can ultimately cobble together a full explanation. Every element makes perfect sense, and it's a very satisfying, logically consistent system. Like, time rips work this way, they happen when this happens, this is how they're...
Oh, God.
And I love that, but I would argue that does mean Donnie Darko's like, you couldn't have put some of that in there. It would have been very appreciated. But gaming is not that. I think it's... Yeah.
Okay, I see your Donnie Darko, and I raise you Mulholland Drive.
I love that you said that. That's exactly the film I was thinking of when I was like, I don't want to read an essay to watch your movie.
But do you like Mulholland Drive?
I love Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, it's great.
But I have also read Me too. But I read an essay to explain it and liked it less that there was an explanation.
Well, I also like, if you got the original Mulholland Drive DVD, David Lynch put on the inside 10 clues to follow to decode Mulholland Drive.
No.
And he revealed later that they're all
just...
DVD.
I have the DVD. I never saw that.
Oh, shit.
Oh, well, the funny joke is they're made up. Like, they're intentionally confused. He's like, pay attention to which scenes feature the red lampshade.
Some of them have blue eyes, and another one has gray eyes.
That's amazing. Because he knows it's the same thing. Just to interrupt for one last moment on this.
No, sure.
Because he knows that the most important thing in his movies basically is uncertainty and that visual surprise and being caught off guard on your back foot the whole movie. That's what he's going for. If he was going for like a seamless, tight narrative, then he failed.
Right.
That's not important to him. And he's making fun of, he's kind of like pushing the boundaries because he knows everyone else, all they care about is a tight narrative. So we have those movies, but now he gets to make his own type of movies.
Yeah, and I think similar to, and I can hear the passion in your voice, which makes sense to me, he's also an artist who definitely prizes cultivating the feeling the audience has over whatever it happens be about.
The feeling is first.
Right.
I don't know why I'm crying when that woman's singing Llorando, but I am.
Oh my God, I cried too. I mean, that was moving.
I don't know why I'm so
Why?
scared of that albino cowboy. I could clearly take him in a fight, but I'm terrified
God.
right now. Yeah.
He
doesn't like being
right
interrupted
near
either.
you too in one of those canyons. I wouldn't dare go up there. I might still be there.
No kidding. No kidding. Hey, so
Yeah.
I have one other question for you, Charlie. I hope you don't mind me asking you another one.
No, not at all.
I'm curious, what was the point in this game where you found you were the furthest away from how your audience felt about it?
Oh.
Mm.
Yeah, I really lined up a home run for this one.
I don't feel like I'm far away from the audience on it at all.
Okay. So there was never a point
So, I
where
mean,
you felt like it's this thing and the audience is like, no, it should be this other thing.
I have seen that the audience feels very strongly that you guys don't have enough things in the tech tree that utilize nickel ore. Does that stick in your craw? Does that
You and the nickel.
is that a burr under your saddle?
It's not. It's
Okay.
not. I mean, I think that. So in early access, you're going to learn things about your game, and you learn what people want. And sometimes you're going to disagree with them. Like, for instance, when people say, "I really want a harpoon," because I don't know, guns and video games, give me a damn harpoon. And we just don't even entertain that suggestion because we've heard it a million times, and we're making a different kind of game.
Yeah.
There's certain things when a community will say something and just bounces off you uselessly and taking no energy. And other things when they say it, you're like, for instance, man, that like when you see someone's face when they're so scared from a creature, or they get so excited when they go dip down into a cave and it opens up around them.
Yeah.
Like, it's all like giant mushrooms. You just immediately know you need to be doing more of that stuff and lean more into the phobias and the exploration and the scariness.
Although
So it's more like we have our own litmus test is what I'm trying to say. So they're just helping us see what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I would argue that even though you said you didn't make puzzles, the sense of discovery is still very much the same as solving a difficult puzzle. In like the puzzles are of a nature of like the ecosystem works, and you have to observe it and figure out what the behaviors of the ecosystem are for your benefit.
Yeah.
And that to me felt like a new kind of puzzle that I really hope we see more of. Like, I hope that this inspires more art that's iterative of this, because to me, one of the greatest humble moments in the game that's not flashy was figuring out for myself how you can stack a giant pile of metal salvage under stalkers in order to harvest teeth. That is a puzzle that is so organic and of the world that, like, I love things, like the ideal beat in a film develops character while advancing the plot, like hits on multiple levels. And to me, it was so exciting to realize I'm experiencing a moment in a game where the puzzle solving is also world building. It's the same beat. That was dope.
I think that's actually one of my favorite things about this game is how often that happens.
Ecosystemic puzzle solving.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a lot to say about this, but just cut me off if I go on too long. Okay, first thing I want to say is I spent 2 years personally working on trying to develop the ecosystems in the game, so we actually had proper ecosystems. It was like a pet passion of mine that I could never actually get to work, and I now know why it would never work. Basically, because the density of the interactions is too low. Because you can effectively fly because you're swimming. So we could never get the density of plants and animals and the player close, high enough that any kind of like anything based off proximity would ripple and chain effect. The interactions would die out immediately. That's one aspect for why ecosystems didn't work.
Sure.
So the metal thing was like, hey, let's at least have stalkers take metal and drop it off. Like that's one simple interaction we can do. So I'm really glad you like that. The second thing I want to say is I just wouldn't call that a puzzle. I mean, because a puzzle, the way I think of a puzzle is that it's something the designer created, and there's usually one solution. Sometimes there can be more than one, but basically there's like a known set of solutions, and we didn't do that. There's nothing to solve with the metal, like with the stalkers and metal. You never had to figure that out. It was just there as gravy. And the third thing is, I would say that. I mean, it's basically an illusion. Unfortunately, we don't have as many environmental interactions as we wanted and emergent behaviors. We snuck them in whenever we could when it was simple, but it's one of the hardest things to do in a game, in my opinion.
Oh, sure.
And,
Yeah. But I imagine a game in the future that's descendant from or inspired by someone who loves Subnautica that is like Subnautica with a fully realized ecosystem where the animals have a complex palette of behaviors. That would be so cool. And I bet that becomes technologically feasible as time marches on. I'd love to see that. And you can feel that the bones of that idea are completely there. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So you were saying basically the issue is like if your behavior affected an animal in a particular way, it would just run away, and there's so much open sea that the behavior dies out. It just calms down.
It just calms down. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more like trickery and feeling than anything else. I mean, that's so much of the game too. If you replay it, you'll realize how easy the game is. There's almost no challenge. But the first time through, it feels like hard and scary. And the second time through, you're like, I know everything. It's like, it's almost trivial. You're like, I can't believe I was ever scared of this. It's kind of like a big illusion.
And I was wondering that because Adam was referencing people providing information for the gaming community that goes beyond what you put in the game. And I think it's important that you created a handcrafted static world and omitted a very simple mapping system. And there is, of course, the most detailed map you could ever want online. There's like an excellent map with all the...
That hurts my soul.
Oh, and so is that why? Because it sort of unravels the mysteries of the abyss too much?
Yeah, I think the whole point of the game is the discovery. So Zelda does this. It drives me crazy. Zelda, to me, the fun part of Breath of the Wild, is discovering discovering recipes, discovering how to light trees on fire and what that might do. Sledding with your shield. So they go to all this work to put in all these systems. They're like little mini systems. They're not necessarily all tied together, but they're there and they're well realized and well done. They put in all this work to put that in there, and then they have these little tooltips, the loading screen hints, which tell you if you want to, you can sled down the hills. Just press this button to sit on your shield and go down, or like make sure to put your metal away when the lightning comes out, when there's a rainstorm. To me, that is the most giant waste of resources. Either
for the wiki.
Either put it, either don't put that stuff in, and then you don't have to explain it, or do put it in and don't explain it. I just don't understand why. So to me, the map is like basically removing. I mean, I guess some people would say they're saving time, but I don't really know why they're playing the game if they're worried about saving time.
If your goal is I gotta chug through this as fast as possible.
The
clock is running.
You want to check it off your list?
But I love this. I love.
I'm not interested in making games that you check off your list. That's why we have
you're
no
totally right.
explicit rewards in the game. It's about
totally
enjoying the game.
Yeah, I mean, because you're right. We don't enjoy it. I totally agree. And as a person who's made a bunch of short films, and then I've watched people watch them. And watched while they're doing it, they're petting their cat or they're doing another thing, like they're typing on their laptop or whatever. And you're like, why don't you just pay attention to this? And you have to live with a certain amount of the audience doesn't love this the same way you do. And I understand how you feel about it. It's interesting.
Because I needed that map once or twice, but
I get why you don't want it. I do get it. It makes sense to me. No, it's about discovery.
Well, it's like Myst would be ruined if someone said, you can just switch that switch and take the white page over and you're done. And you're like, well, I didn't want to be done that fast.
And therefore was ruined for many of us. Yeah.
I just realized Brad Dourif from Deadwood is in Myst 1.
Yeah, he's the guy.
It blew my mind. Yeah,
he's very temperamental in it.
He's the sassy robot.
No, but I understand. It makes sense. I love hearing you say that because it's I understand that sort of pure idealism.
Yeah.
I hope you don't lose it. I hope you keep doing it in these games.
No, I will.
Good.
I mean, I'm so firm on this because I don't want to make games that are just using up a bunch of people's time. I mean, that's what games do already, and it's a little scary to think about how much time has been used up. I don't even know if you call it used up, but you want to you spend a lot of time making a game, and then if you think about 5 million people, maybe on average they play the game 15 or 20 hours. Holy crap, that's a lot of time. You better be enjoying that. I do not want to convince you to play the game more. and like not go outside and not learn how to cook and not talk to your mom. You better be enjoying it. And if not, please stop. I'm not going to trick you into enjoying it through achievements.
That's it. Yeah, so that's great. So how do you feel about, I mean, and I don't want to get off on too big a detour on this, but like, how does that inform your feelings on doing things the way that, say, a game like Destiny or World of Warcraft do?
Where the point is to keep you going. Component.
Yeah, the point is to keep you there, right? Like or at least it seems like that to us as users.
I mean, I'm very against it. I mean, it's a delicate balance because I wouldn't say that those games shouldn't be made. I mean, I just know that that's not the kind of game that motivates me. That goal is not my goal. For working so hard for years on a game. So it's a tricky balance though, because you do want, there's these times where you want the game to like acknowledge what you've done with it and you want to change as you play. So that kind of ties into either achievements or unlocking or new modes or something. But I guess for me, it's certainly not about like trophies. And in fact, I was so against achievements for so long. And to ship the Xbox One version, we actually had to put achievements in, which really pissed me off. I don't know why Microsoft requires that. It's like, get the hell out of my game.
Oh, interesting.
We don't, but they required it, and we wanted to have it unified between all the platforms.
That's your studio notes. Yeah.
Crappy achievements everywhere. So,
Were there any, did you name any of their achievements ironically or sarcastically as a dig at the man?
I mean, we made them really easy. That's what we did.
Oh, right. Okay. There's the minimum number, and you achieve them within 10 minutes, and you're done.
One of them is, craft some bullshit. You got it. That's great.
There's no map, fuck you. You earn it by turning the game on.
Here's your achievement, motherfucker. No map.
Yeah. No map. Exactly. Yeah.
I like this interview because I got to say I do feel like I'm getting a view of the landscape of your game design philosophy, which is what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I agree.
Good.
That's the most interesting thing to me.
But you disagreed with me about the definition of a puzzle, so it's time to wrap it up because I can't break this agreement.
You can just edit that out.
It's already been done.
No, it's written into the future. I like it.
That's right.
Adam, do you have any final questions?
One thing I wanted to say before.
Yeah.
You guys were talking about ecosystem games. There's actually a game called Eco by Strange Loop.
Oh.
And they actually have fully simulated ecosystems, and it's multiplayer, and people are loving it.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention that for your listeners.
Yeah.
And for you.
Are you okay? So now that we're doing this game for a second, are you as blown away by Lucas Pope as I am? You Lucas Pope guy?
I actually haven't. I probably will be next time I talk to you. I haven't played Return of the Obra Dinn yet.
Obra Dinn's great.
Enough time into, I mean, it's been sitting here on my desktop. I don't know. Someday I'm going to play it.
I feel like anyone who appreciates unique feelings generated in a game like you do would love Papers, Please. Because I've never felt that way playing a game. It was so specific and weird.
No, Papers, Please was lovely. I mean, I didn't put enough time into it to really understand all the systems. But the idea of it was fantastic. The conceit, the constraint was all amazing. Yeah, I need to definitely. I'm way behind. Like the rest.
Well, you're a busy dude, I imagine. Yeah.
My very last question is: can you recommend me a game that you feel like other people haven't paid enough attention to that you really respect that we should try out?
I mean, my pat answer would be Spelunky because it's my favorite game of all time.
Everybody talks about that game. I gotta play it, I guess.
I like Spelunks, that really old children's game, but
I don't know what that is.
Oh, do you know what? Well, it's Cyan, the same company that does Myst. They did a couple of children's games that actually, I can't, I've got our cat knocked our microphone over. Hold on, reposition. Since we mentioned Myst and you love tone and Subnautica captures such an interesting tone, I gotta recommend Manhole, Cosmic Osmo, and Spelunks with an X at the end, which are all games by Cyan, the same company that did Myst, and they're aimed at kids, but they still have that mysterious, unsettling vibe that Myst had. It's very weird and interesting. Yeah, Lynch fans would appreciate.
Spelunky.
Check
out Spelunky.
I'll play that right now, yeah.
It's basically it's a perfect game as far as I'm concerned. I don't think it can be improved. In fact, I'm not even excited about the sequel because I'm just like, you've already made the best game of all time. You don't need to make a new one. I don't need it. I'll just play that. Yeah.
Let me check it out right now.
A couple more that I'm loving. Dream Daddy, I think, is incredible.
Yep.
Dead Cells, everything. Yeah. I finally just played everything like a year ago. It just blew me away. Everything is like one of my favorite games.
I showed you that, Adam. That's the Zen game where you roll around talking to other life forms. Yeah.
Yeah. It's more like a spiritual experience than a game.
Exactly.
It's incredible. As far as like something that's just well crafted that I really appreciate, I played this this game called Ziggurat a couple of years ago that I actually really still love. It's a procedural roguelike, but 3D, kind of like a Hexen style with like randomly generated dungeons and like really crazy power ups that change the game every time. Just really well done.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
I play a lot of board games too. I'm more of like a board gamer at this point because it takes such a special video game to really pull me in.
I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What was the name of the board game you most recently designed that you had mentioned?
Oh, actually, I've only made one board game, and it's actually not quite done yet. But I've been working for about 4 years on this game, and I made like 40 or 50 prototypes at least. I just learned I would say that I basically learned the craft, the beginning level of craft for board game design. And it's a White Wolf branded vampire game called Vampire Vendetta.
Uh-huh.
And I'm co-designing it with Bruno Faduti, and it's published by Horrible Games, which did Potion Explosion, if you know them.
Nice.
I do not know them.
It's really cool, actually. These guys are awesome.
Okay.
They're definitely ones to watch if you're into board games. They have one really cool legacy-style game called The King's Dilemma, which I cannot wait for. These guys are really, really good. Anyway, so it's a White Wolf branded vampire game based loosely off Cosmic Encounter, and it'll be published, I think, early next year.
That's that's such a cool field to start getting into, board game design. I love it.
It's so fun. Oh my gosh. Fun. You can make prototypes in like an hour and then play it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Cheap Ass Games was a website that they would just design games and all you did was print it out, cut out the pieces.
Yep,
and
I remember them.
They'd have a new game every 2 or 3 days. It was really cool.
Yep. Totally.
All right. Well, I also, of course, want to plug Subnautica Below Zero, which is open right now to play while it's under development. That's available on Steam right now. Anywhere else? I don't think anywhere else right now. Oh, yeah? Yeah, plug all your pluggables, Charlie.
That's really it.
That's all right. Below Zero is all-consuming.
I mean, actually, I'm actually spending most of my time on a new game, which we haven't announced yet, which is completely different than Subnautica. Although it is sci-fi, that's about it. So that's kind of what I'm obsessed with these days.
Excellent.
Keep our eyes peeled.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Maybe I'll send you an early copy. You can tell me what you think.
Ooh, now, finally. Yeah, we didn't want to bring it up, but yeah.
But we knew that from second one. That was the goal of the interview.
Mission accomplished. I love it.
So we'll come over to your house right now.
There you go. Sure, right now. Just drive up to San Francisco.
Yeah, man.
I got my little game room up here with my gaming table.
I want to play. I'd rather play the vampire game first.
I do want to play that board game.
It's all set up.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
If you do make it up here, I'm happy to show you the game. You come over for beers and Vampire.
Watch yourself.
It's actually a very good game now.
I'm entertaining a job offer in the Bay, so this could actually happen. So don't write checks your ass can't cash.
You're invited.
Yes.
Come over to the mission.
Scored the invite. All right. We better withdraw before I ruin this burgeoning friendship. But thank you so much for being here, Charlie. That was very illuminating.
No, thanks. I hope so. I hope you learned. Hope it was worthwhile.
Absolutely, and we highly encourage anyone who hasn't to check out Subnautica and Below Zero. This has been a 1Upsmanship. Say bye, Adam.
Adios.